I remember waking up shortly after my 30th birthday, looking at my bank account and feeling this heavy, sinking sensation in my chest. You hit this milestone age, and suddenly there's this unspoken societal expectation that you're supposed to be an absolute expert at building wealth in your 30s. You know the drill. You're supposed to have the career path figured out, the investments growing, the emergency fund locked and loaded. But what if building wealth in this decade isn't actually about completely overhauling your life, but, well, just surviving it? That panicked thought just echoes, doesn't it? Am I already too late? You're staring down a stack of bills, maybe a mortgage, maybe ridiculous childcare costs, and you really start to wonder if the window to actually build wealth has already slammed shut. I kept looking around, seeing people on social media who were apparently becoming crypto millionaires in their 20s, and I kept asking myself if I had completely missed the bolt. The pressure is just suffocating. But then I realized something absolutely crucial. We aren't actually doing something wrong. We've just entered this wildly different phase of life, surviving the messy middle. Because this messy middle is that chaotic, totally unpredictable period where suddenly you are completely short on both time and money. Your career demands are ramping up, maybe your family is growing, and there is just so much happening all at once that you feel like you are constantly playing catch up. You're caught right between the carefree freedom of your 20s and the supposed financial stability of your 40s. We all grow up with this expectation of how things are supposed to go, right? We picture this beautiful, unbroken straight line moving perfectly up and to the right. You get a good job, you save a little money, and boom, you get rich. Simple. Yeah, right. The reality looks significantly more like a tangled, messy ball of yarn. Kids happen, jobs change, the housing market goes completely crazy, and cars break down. Life has a real sick sense of humor when you try to draw a straight line. I didn't realize how wrong my panic was until I started digging into the actual data. Which brings us to a massively important realization. You are not behind. If you feel like you are entirely behind the curve right now, I need you to take a deep breath and give yourself some grace, because I found out where everybody else actually is in the real world, and it completely shifted my perspective. Just look at this number, 33. That is the exact age the average investor actually starts putting money away. Think about that for a second. If you are in your late 20s or early 30s and you have even thought about opening a retirement account, or maybe you managed to put a few bucks into a 401k a couple of years ago, you are literally already ahead of the curve. The idea that everyone else is miles ahead of you is an absolute illusion. And hey, if you are stressing out about not owning real estate yet, the median age for a first-time home buyer right now is 38. That effectively destroys the myth that you were supposed to have the house, the investments, and the perfectly curated life all figured out by the time you blow out 30 candles. You still have so much time to make this work. Once my suffocating anxiety turned into genuine excitement, I started looking at the actual numbers. Let's talk about the math of catching up. I sat down and looked at how this actually plays out, and when you understand what your dollars can do for you, it feels like an absolute superpower. Your 30s are this really unique decade where building wealth feels agonizingly slow at first. It feels like you're literally putting pennies away. But then, suddenly, it starts to move incredibly fast. Look at this mind-blowing reality. Let's say you hit 30, you're making $100,000, and you somehow manage to scrape together $100,000 in your 20s. The standard financial goal is to have 3 times your income by age 40. That sounds completely impossible, right? But if you do absolutely nothing, literally just let that 100K sit at an 8% return, it grows to over $222,000 by age 40. Your money is doing the heavy lifting while you sleep. And to fill that final gap to reach your goal, it only takes saving about $450 a month starting at age 30. That is just a 5% savings rate to completely catch up. But here is where things get weird and why we absolutely cannot just coast. Time is still your most valuable resource right now. At the very beginning of your 30s, every single dollar you invest has the potential to multiply 23 times by the time you retire. But if you wait until you are 39, that multiplier drops all the way down to 8. Waiting until the end of the decade severely drops the working power of your money. You don't have to be perfect, but you do have to start. Because let's be honest, what happens when real life hits on a random Tuesday at 2 p.m.? A transmission blows, your kid needs an emergency trip to the dentist, and suddenly that perfect savings strategy you mapped out goes entirely out the window. That is exactly what this video is about, figuring out how to navigate those Tuesday emergencies together so we actually survive this decade. If you've ever had a perfectly good budget ruined by a weird noise in your car's engine, hit subscribe. And actually, I'm really curious, what was your most ridiculous Tuesday at 2 p.m. emergency that completely derailed your finances? Let me know down in the comments, because I know for a fact I am not the only one. So we know we need to save and we know we have time. But knowing we have time isn't the only problem. We also have to focus on protecting your future self. Because as 30 somethings, we still walk around acting like we are totally invincible. We think, hey, I survived my 20s making terrible decisions. I am practically bulletproof now. We focus so much on accumulating wealth and catching up that we completely ignore protecting the people who actually rely on us. It is almost comical how willfully ignorant we are at this age. Literally, 48% of American adults have no life insurance. It's basically a coin flip. Imagine having a spouse or kids depending on your income to keep a roof over their heads and just crossing your fingers that nothing goes wrong. In our 20s, when we were only responsible for ourselves, we could get away with that kind of risk. Now, it's just irresponsible. And the statistics get even bleaker from there. 82% of people have no disability insurance, even though you are far more likely to get injured and be unable to work than you are to die unexpectedly. 60% of people have no will or estate documents. 54% don't have a fully funded emergency fund. We have this bizarre snobbery where we think estate planning and insurance is an old person's game. It's not. It is a strict requirement for right now. Building that emergency fund, having 3 to 6 months of living expenses sitting in liquid cash, isn't just about having a safety net. I realized it is an absolute superpower. It creates margin in your life. When you have money sitting there and others don't, you don't have to make desperate, emotional decisions when things inevitably go sideways. It keeps you from raiding your future to pay for your present. Once I understood that buffer, I thought I was ready for the advanced stuff. But really, the truth is, the boring way wins. There is this intense pressure, this absolute financial perfectionism that tells us because we are getting older, our investments need to get really complicated. We hear people talking about private equity, building real estate empires, making crazy crypto trades, and we think we are failing if our portfolio isn't complicated. I didn't realize how wrong I was until I saw what happens to people who chase complexity. The truth is, success naturally creates complication in your life anyway. Your taxes get harder, your calendar gets infinitely busier. So your best defense in this messy middle is to aggressively invest the boring way. Low-cost index funds and automation. Set it and forget it. You don't have the time to be chasing stock picks when you're trying to raise a toddler or build a career. Keep it painfully simple so you can actually spend your time living your life. And part of that simplicity means cleaning up our own messes. By the time you are in your 30s, you have probably had 2, maybe 3 different jobs. We tend to leave old 401ks behind like this messy patchwork quilt of forgotten passwords and old HR departments. Step 1, track down those old jobs. Step 2, consolidate those old 401ks into one place. Taking an hour on a random weekend to do this completely stops the chaos. It puts you back in the driver's seat and gives you total control over what your money is actually doing. The most crucial realization I had about this decade is that you have to find balance. A phrase that really stuck with me is learning to bedazzle your basic life. You want to look back at your 30s and say you lived well, that you made incredible memories with your friends and family. But you can do that without putting a luxury vacation on a high-interest credit card. You can travel on a budget. You can make the everyday, mundane moments sparkle just a bit more without financially ruining yourself. Because at the end of the day, accumulating money is never the actual point. It is so easy to get caught up chasing $100,000 or $1 million, thinking that hitting those numbers is the ultimate goal. But those numbers are just mile markers on a much longer journey. Money is just a tool. The real issue is something nobody talks about. We sacrifice the life we have right now to secure a future we aren't even guaranteed to see. The only real goal is to use that tool to build a life where, when you finally look back, you have absolutely zero regrets.